Back in Uniontown, guys. This is P9, and I'm making a return trip to Uniontown, Alabama, where I'm gonna walk around and get some of these historical mansions, houses that are pretty much dilapidated and whatnot. But we're gonna get the historical background and whatnot. So let's get into it, shall we? Now, we start over here on Franklin Street. This particular structure right here, it's like a 2-story mansion that's very dilapidated. It's at 350 Franklin, as you can see right here. They even have the signs painted. And let's go ahead and take a further look down this way. So that building, this is like, I don't know if I see some construction material, some wooden boards and drywall, ladders, all that type of stuff. So maybe possibly they might do something with that, restore it, or whatever the case may be. But that's what it is. That's what it looks like. Let's continue. Now, the name of that building, by the way, is the Conita Manor, or the Conita Manor, or Manor, I should say, Conita Manor. Classical revival, neoclassical revival building, built in 1909. The home was actually added to the National Register of Historic Places back in 2000. This brings us to this like little cemetery. And the cemetery is actually an abandoned church, it looks like. Designed by architect Edwin Oliver. In fact, here's this historical marker that gives some insight on this church, this historical building, which was built in 1844, the Church of Holy Cross. Episcopalians in Uniontown and Marengo County united to form Union Parish. The parish was admitted to the Diocese of Alabama on May 2nd, 1845. And after the donation of this site in 1847, ladies of the congregation diligently worked to raise sufficient funds for the construction of the first church. Although incomplete for many years, services were first held here in January 1848 for the black and white communicants. In 1853, the Union Parish divided and the Marengo County parishioners formed St. Michael's Parish in Faunsdale. So Faunsdale is a town not too far from Uniontown. In 1863, Church of the Holy Cross was consecrated by Bishop R.H. Wilmer. The 1900 frame building was replaced by a brick church through the generosity of Mrs. Maria Price Davidson as a memorial to her late husband, Alexander C. Davidson. So there's more on this side. As you can see, again, the cemeteries, the headstones and everything. Architect Edwin H. Oliver of New Orleans designed the Church of Holy Cross, reputedly inspired by a 10th century chapel in Amiens, France. The church is regarded as a rare example in the Deep South of the arts and craft style as expressed in religious architecture. So this is rare, a rare type of architecture in the Deep South. Interesting. So this is on Franklin Street. So this is nothing but a few blocks away from downtown Uniontown. And look at this. A lot of vines and kudzu around this. This is the front of it too. You can see the chapel doors. And erected in 1900 to the glory of God in blessed memory of Alexander Caldwell Davidson, as you can see right here. And the illuminated cross given on the glory of God. Wow. As you can see the stained glass windows right there. Huh. Very interesting. To shed some light on Uniontown, the background of Uniontown, since I did not do that in the original Uniontown vlog. I'm gonna go ahead and give a background of Uniontown. It was settled in 1818, originally called Woodville after the first family that settled there. It was incorporated in 1836, and Woodville, as it was called then, was the terminus of one of the earliest plank roads in Alabama. So there was a plank road that connected Woodville with Demopolis. An Alabama and Mississippi Railroad ran through that town in 1857. It was also around this time when plantations were built around town, including the Westwood Antebellum, which is a Greek revival style mansion that was built by planters and former slaves. And those slaves were owned by James Lewis Price, who was a planter and railroad executive. So that Westwood mansion is now private property, whose residents are Price's descendants. So that's just to give you some background of Uniontown, which brings us to this home right here, this abandoned structure. This is called the Hardie-Coleman House. Now, guys, this has a very fascinating and bizarre story behind this home. Now, it was built in 1918, but it was infamously known for being the site of the murder of 13-year-old Alan Lucy in 1985. Now, who was Alan Lucy, you guys may ask? Well, Lucy was an adopted son of Philip and Margaret Dale Lucy, and they adopted him, I believe, when he was like 7 or 8 years old. And the Lucy's biological son, Jason, would tell people that he actually witnessed the father, who was Philip Lucy, strike Alan in the hand with his fist. And I think Alan ultimately ended up striking his head on the ground. And ultimately that injury, that blow to the head, ended up being fatal. But as a attempt to cover it up, the father, Philip, basically, made the body disappear, tried to dispose of the body the best way he could. Like they say, the cover up is worse than the crime. So Alan, or Jason would tell people he actually witnessed this, but a lot of people didn't believe him. They didn't believe Philip would do that. But long story short, Alan's remains weren't found until almost a decade later in 1994. So as you can see, this home was actually purchased in 1993 by someone who actually purchases old homes and restores them. Obviously, it never materialized as far as the restoration. It's in shambles now. But yeah, this is the Hardie-Coleman home. So as it turns out, Mr. Philip Lucy ultimately ended up being convicted later on. This was years later. But before he even, the trial even started. So actually, he wasn't convicted. I take that back. Before the trial even started, he ended up taking his own life in his jail cell because, he didn't want to face the music. And his wife originally was charged, but, the charges were dropped, because she was going to get accessory to the crime. So, yeah, it's a really crazy story. Now, there was this YouTuber by the name of Jeremy Explores. He did a great job. He actually did a walkthrough of this thing. He did a walkthrough, did a video. I'm gonna post a link to it. But Jeremy Explores did a complete walkthrough of the house. He went upstairs and went up there, and he did it in the condition that it's in. I'm like, that's crazy, So he was taking the gamble because of the dilapidated floors, the condition, But shouts out to him for basically braving it out, thugging it out. Again, this is the Hardie-Coleman home, built in 1918. That is the story behind this structure. Very old structure that's still standing, but barely. Over here on the campus of Robert C. Hatch High School, or R.C. Hatch High School, home of the Bobcats. This is the front of the school. So it's a pretty nice campus, as you can see right here. And good school. Good school looks like. They won the 2025 state 1A basketball championships. So that shout out to the RC Hatch Bobcats for the state title in basketball 2025. You can see right there, there's some banners. They even have some of their graduates right there. Honor students. So they give shout outs to their graduates and honor students. So that's a really cool thing. Football field is back down that way. But to shed some light on the history of R.C. Hatch High School, it was originally opened in 1925. It was built in 1925, and it was originally called Perry County Training School. So it was renamed to R.C. Hatch in 1964 to honor Dr. Robert Clinton Hatch, a noted educator and former acting president of Alabama State University. So it's a pretty good, looks like a pretty celebrated high school, local high school here, Robert C. Hatch High School, home of the Bobcats. And as pointed out, as one of the banners indicated, the men's basketball program won the 2025 1A title, but that wasn't the only title that they won. That was the most recent title. But Uniontown, or R.C. Hatch High School, as you can see, Bobcat Nation. This isn't, they have a history in the 1A division of winning state titles. So they won titles going all the way back to 1978. So they won in 78, 85, 87, 94, 95, 2003, 04, 06, 07, 08, and most recently in 2025. So shout out to RC Hatch. And it sits right over here, actually across from the Uniontown Elementary School. They even have the painting, Bobcat Nation. So this is the gymnasium, it looks like. So pretty nice. So the high school and the elementary school. So it'll be pretty interesting. Sometimes, some of these smaller towns, because of the population, sometimes they'll do mergers with elementary, junior, and high schools. So I wonder if that was the case for R.C. Hatch High School. As far as I know, that could have been a consolidation. But yeah, it's a pretty cool looking school and historic landmark right here in the town of Uniontown, which brings me to the end of this vlog. Guys, thanks so much for tapping into this vlog. If you made it this far, make sure you hit the like button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you select the subscribe button along with the notification bell. And once you hit that bell, make sure you select all. That way you get notified every time I drop a new vlog. And with that in mind, good people, thanks again for tuning in to Uniontown. And this is P9 signing off. Peace.